Well, hello, friends. It's Thursday. So today we want to get into God's Word and we want to look at Proverbs chapter 16. One of the verses we're reading for today. There's several, one of the chapters, we're reading for today. And I want to go to the end of chapter 16 and look at verse 32 because it kind of goes right along with some of the things I mentioned Tuesday. And as I mentioned earlier, there's patterns in Proverbs. It's like Solomon would say something in one way, and then a few verses later, maybe a few chapters later, he might say the same thing, but say it in a little bit of a different way. Trying to convey that hey, the principle is the same, but the way you can apply it, and maybe the way you need to understand it might be different. So look at verse 32. Patience is better than power, and controlling one's emotions than capturing a city. All right, so that word emotions there, that goes back to what I talked about Tuesday, that we have become a culture that's driven by the emotion. But I want to look at the first phrase, where it says patience is better than power. What's being implied there? Well, we're a very instantaneous type culture. We have drive-through food, we have fast food joints, as we call them, meaning you expect to get your food in a very timely manner, 5 minutes or less. We have the easy pay at the pump. There's no more going in. You have to go in and pay for it, and then somebody come out and unlock a pump or whatever. You just pay there. It unlocks everything. We have lightning fast internet where things happen at a click of a button. Sometimes you wished it wouldn't because you inadvertently clicked that button, but it happens so quickly. So patience has become something of an endangered species, if you will, and especially for somebody who has authority, somebody who has means. And that's where I associate power. I associate power with somebody who has authority, somebody who has means to make things happen and happen quickly. Solomon says patience is better than that. Because oftentimes power will just kind of ram things through. Power will bypass some necessary checks and balances. Power will neglect and negate counsel, get advice from others. It'll just make it happen because it can. And that's not always the best. Sometimes you do need to push through with authority. Sometimes you need to push through quickly because of the urgency of the moment. There are times when that's necessary. But most of the time, you need careful count. You need to receive careful counsel. You need to bounce ideas off of individuals. You need to go about the proper channels and follow checks and balances. That's going to mean you got to be patient. You have to be patient. And that's true with anything. You think about impulsive nature. An impulsive buyer is typically going to pay more. They're typically going to make a bad deal because they're going to buy something on an impulse to only later on realize that that impulse wasn't really a true reflection of their need and certainly, or excuse me, their desire, and certainly not a reflection of their need. And so because they weren't patient, because they acted on the impulse, they wind up with, a debt. They wind up with a bad item or an insufficient object that they purchased or item they've purchased. It's just a no win. So Solomon's right. Patience is better than power. Then he says, and controlling one's emotions than capturing a city. Oh wow! I mean, to capture a city demonstrates, that you've got strength. You've got military prowess. That you're stronger than the other. And in many cases, sometimes emotion can drive that. But Solomon's saying, if you can control your emotion, that's even better than capturing a whole city. That's even better than having great military prowess. That's even better than having military might, wherewithal, having the numbers and the ability to overtake another group to supplant them. He said it's better to be able to control your emotions. You know what that tells me? That it's not easy to control your emotions. It is very difficult to keep your emotions in check. Whether that's rage or anger, frustration, hatred, whether that's impatience. We can put all sorts of things in that word emotion. We can put all sorts of qualifiers underneath that. But he's clearly saying that it's better to be able to control your emotions than to have enough power and authority to overtake a whole city, to overthrow a whole city. And that really is true, friends. And all of this really, to me, fits together nicely. That when I'm patient, that means it's self-control. I'm controlling my emotions. I'm controlling my desires. I'm controlling those impulses that want to drive me toward the immediacy and the necessity of that moment. I'm controlling that. I'm not being controlled by that. And I'm not allowing my emotions, what's going on in me hormonally, what's going on in me in terms of my heart rate, all that. I'm holding it in check. I'm keeping it, disciplined, if you will, so that my actions are not impulsive, so that my actions are not driven by a lack of control, a lack of focus, a lack of intention, positive, constructive intention. There's a lot captured in this verse, and it really was something we really need to take to heart as individuals and as a culture. And I wish truly that more and more people, believers and unbelievers alike, would read the book of Proverbs and carefully consider, contemplate, and then consciously employ the principles that that Solomon gives us here. We'd see a dramatic difference. Even among unbelievers, what Solomon's giving here is pure wisdom. And it's wisdom that can lead to a productive, positive, flourishing life, which he says several times, by the way. So let's take this to heart. Let's try to be patient. Patient with ourselves, patient with a process, patient with other people. Because that patience is ultimately going to bring about a positive, constructive good. Let's keep our emotions in check, demonstrating great power and self-control. And when we do that, it's going to make us a better person to be around, and it's going to make those around us better people. And that's going to be a positive, constructive outcome. Well, have a great day, friends. As you're heading out the door, live sent.